AutoCAD people, here's a quick tutorial on how to make box tubing in SolidWorks. So this is the kind of stuff that we can get pretty easily from VexPro or a couple other places, and because of the way that it's constructed and the way it comes from the factory, it makes it very easy for us to put it together into various kinds of structures and mechanisms. Here we go. We're going to make a new part. And then once we've got that open, we're going to go ahead and make a new sketch on the front plane. Start the sketch, we're going to make a center rectangle. Just drag it out, throw it down there. Then add some dimensions, click the Smart Dimension button up here, pull out a dimension for the vertical height. And then at this point, we can put a couple different things in here. The kind of standard dimensions are either 1 inch tall by 1 inch wide or 2 inches tall by 1 inch wide. So this one will make 1 by 1, but you could very easily make 2 by 1 or whatever you want. Put 1 inch there. Same thing on the horizontal dimension. And then you can see that all of our lines here have turned black, and SolidWorks is saying that we are fully defined down here in the status bar. So our sketch is good to go. You can exit from that, make sure our sketch is selected, and then make an extruded boss / base from that. Making sure we set this up the right way, we'll change where it says blind to mid-plane. That will make the extrusion extend from both directions. And more importantly, that makes sure that the origin of our part is in the very center of it, which provides some nice alignment features when we go to place this into an assembly. Now here's your second design point that you have to choose, basically how long it's going to be. For this one, we'll make it 30 inches long, but it's obviously very easy to set to whatever you want. Or if you figure out that you need something different later on, very easy to come back and change later. I'll show you how to do that in a second. We got that there. Then the critical part here is that we don't want this to be a solid block. We want this to be a tube, have it be hollow in the middle. So we're going to come down here and click the checkbox next thin feature. And then the wall thickness here will depend on where we get the tubing from. If we get it from VexPro, this is probably 0.1. If we get it from a standard metal supplier, this is probably going to be either an 1/8 inch or a 1/16 inch. We'll leave this as 0.1 for now. Then the other very critical thing that we need to do is maybe check this button right next to One Direction. And I don't know if you can see it from the video, but when I click that, what that does is it changes whether or not the thin wall of the tubing extends from the outside of our sketch or extends inward from this rectangle that we made in the sketch. We want to make sure that it's extending inward. So if I zoom in here closer, you can see that when I check and uncheck this, it gets either bigger or smaller, and we want the one that's smaller. That means that the sketch is defining the outside dimensions. When that's all set up properly, go ahead and click the check mark there, and you can see that we now have tubing. If we come down here, look at it from the end, you can see that it's now hollow in the middle, which is exactly what we want. Then the next feature that we do is we put a line of holes down the top of the tube here. This is always going to be, for the sizes that I'm talking about, the 1 by 1 and the 2 by 1, if we're getting the prefabricated metal from VexPro, this is always going to be on the 1 inch side. Obviously, since this is 1 by 1, the particular side doesn't matter, but if you make it 2 by 1, make sure you have it on the 1 inch side. So go ahead and select your top face there. Then we'll start sketching on that face. Come over here and right click on the sketch in the sidebar. You can click normal too, which sometimes makes it easier to see what you're doing. Then we'll go ahead and we'll make one small hole up here at the very top. Let's grab ourselves a center defined circle. Kind of throw it out there. We'll add some dimensions here. Grab your Smart Dimension tool and dimension from the top line here. Make sure you can grab the center point, but it's probably better if you grab the actual line here between that and the center point of the circle down here. and that's going to be a 1/2 inch. And then, as you can see, our circle is still blue here, so we're missing some dimensions. We grab Smart Dimension again. The diameter here is going to be 0.163 inches. That's just what VexPro makes it to be, not my number. Then the last dimension that we need is basically a left to right dimension here. So we'll right click on this top line, say select midpoint, and then holding down Shift key, click the center point of the circle. You can see we have those 2 points now selected over here, and we're going to make those vertical. So now that those points are aligned, our circle can't move anymore. You can see that the line is turned black, so our circle is fully defined. Exit the sketch, and then we'll use this sketch now to make ourselves an extruded cut. Go back to Features, click Extruded Cut. This feature will extend all the way through the part because we want it to drill through both sides. So click Through All, and click OK. You can see we now have a hole. The last step is that we want to have this line of holes extend all the way down to the other end. So to do that, we're going to use a fill pattern. Come up here to the toolbar, and where you see Linear Pattern, click the arrow below it, and then click Fill Pattern. Click the Fill Boundary box here, and then choose the top plane of your tube, the one that you did the sketch on. Over here, then we need to define our pattern parameters. The linear dimension here, the instance spacing, will be 1 inch. And then the rest of them don't particularly matter. Here, make sure that your edge is grabbed one of these long edges down the side of the face. And then the last thing that we're going to do is expand features to pattern. Yours may already be expanded, but make sure you're using features to pattern and not faces to pattern. Click the box there. Expand your component tree here. And then click on our Cut Extrude feature, which is the hole that we made. And you can see that it's now added in a bunch of, or it's showing us a preview of where it's going to add in a bunch more holes. Once you have that all set up looking good, go ahead and click the OK button. And then we have a line of holes down our part. If we rotate around, you can see the holes go all the way through. So there we have it, a basic piece of box tubing with our prefabricated holes put in there, all ready to assemble up into some pretty cool structures and components.